Welcome back to Ultrawide Wednesday, everyone, and welcome finally to Doom, a game that I've been wanting to do on this series since, well, basically I started the series. Why have I held off so long? Well, it's taken me this long to run back through it and complete the game once again. I had some save file issues, which I'll get to later in this video, but I am happy to finally be bringing you this game in Ultrawide because it holds a very special place in my heart. This game is actually the first that I ever played in the ultra-wide format. Why is that? It's kind of a spur-of-the-moment thing, really. I bought my ultra-wide monitor last July, and I'd bought Doom on sale during the Steam Summer Sale for, I think, half off, something like that. And it was one of the first-person shooter games that I hadn't played yet, and I was like, yeah, I want to rip through this game. I got 15 extra frames per second to play with on this monitor. This game's supposed to run really well, so that's what I did. I played through it, and basically hooked me on Ultrawide as well as the game. I love Doom. The single player is fantastic. I believe I played through it in one session, and I'm back again, and I did not, have any less enjoyment. I cranked up the difficulty to the max I could, died a bunch, but had a blast over the past couple of weeks rerunning through this game. So before we get into the ultra-wide stuff, I cannot compliment the optimization on this game enough. It's using id Tech 4, I think is what they're on, either 4 or 5, I can't remember, whatever their latest version is as of Doom releasing last year. It uses really low CPU usage, so that way your graphics card can just crank up to the max whatever performance it can deliver. Especially with Vulkan enabled instead of OpenGL, it works really well on AMD hardware, which is a good thing. I run NVIDIA cards, but I feel like AMD gets gimped a lot of the times. So it's nice to see that even the Fury X can keep up and even overcome the 980 Ti, which I run in many scenarios on this game, which is good. I have everything maxed out as much as it makes sense. We're 2560 by 1080p, no VSync. I show the frame counter a little bit just to give you an idea of what kind of performance I'm getting, and then I turn it off quite quickly because I can tell that it's not going down or anything, so I don't really care. But yeah, all the advanced options and stuff are cranked to what it makes sense, and it's just an amazing looking game. It's really astounding that this game, I can't imagine what it would look like in something like Unreal 4 or Frostbite, but as is, id Software has made an amazing engine. Much better than the previous versions that were running Wolfenstein, and was that the game I'm thinking of? The other one, I think that was one of their things. So yeah, great amazing optimized title. You can play this on about anything. You turn it down low enough, it will work, and it's definitely worth playing through. Our primary focus in this video is going to be on the single player because it is without a doubt the most high quality part of this, unexpectedly so. When I bought the game, I was expecting, it might be alright. Reboots haven't exactly been amazing as far as their track record goes here in the past few years, but this one takes the cake. It is amazing. It has Dark Souls-like lore that, you could completely miss and still love the game, but if you start picking it up, you will enjoy it even more because of the hidden pieces of the story that are lying around. I'm so looking forward to the sequel to see how they carry it forward. There's a lot of great nods back to the classic Dooms. Just a fantastic single player. I could not believe how well it played, as well as told the story that it did. And, of course, having a completely silent protagonist that has more characterization than like 90% of protagonists in video games is pretty impressive as well. We'll also be talking about a little bit of the snap map mode as well as multiplayer, though I don't like those modes quite as bit, and we'll get into why in a moment. So as far as ultra-wide, Doom follows a lot of the same benefits as most first-person shooters have, right? I mean, you have more field of view, and it feels more immersive to me at that aspect ratio, that sort of thing. There are drawbacks, albeit minor ones. So the first thing you might notice is the UI elements are in the same place as 16:9 on your heads-up display. That's something that is polarizing a lot of the times. For me, I don't care. I just do not care. I like it in some scenarios when they're in the corners. I like it in some scenarios when they're where they should be on a 16:9 screen. For Titanfall, for this game, I kind of like them there because then it tricks my brain into thinking, oh, well, that extra field of view is even more extra. You know what I mean? So I kind of like it there. Depends on the game for me. So it's kind of a 50-50. Like Battlefield 1, I'm fairly certain, I haven't played it like the past 2 weeks, so don't quote me on this, but I'm fairly certain they're on the edges. You can check out the video I did on that a while ago if you want to be sure. But for those kind of games, I kind of like them. It's like, it doesn't matter to me. As long as they're not like completely in the center, they're fine. So it's just something you want to keep aware of. Something that's a bit more subtle and something that I didn't notice when the game first launch. I'd already played through it, and apparently the gun models are stretched a bit, although it doesn't appear as though they're stretched in a ratio that matches 21:9 to 16:9, so it doesn't feel like they're a time and a quarter stretched roughly, and if they are, I can't really tell. Maybe it's a field of view thing where it gets worse on the edges and not as bad in the center, but you can look at comparison screenshots and they are stretched. I don't think it's been fixed since, but I don't notice it whatsoever. I've played multiplayer on 16:9. I've played, parts of Snap Map and stuff 16:9, comparing footage. I can't tell. It's not like playing old games that don't support 21:9 at all, and it's just the stretched image. Like if you play Call of Duty 4 today without messing with the hex editor, then you will see it's just a 16:9 image stretched, and that looks awful because everything is stretched. But the gun models, they look fine to me, so it's not an issue. I don't know what trickery is going on, but they look fine. They are huge, which can be a turnoff to some people. Playing on a couch setting isn't as big of a deal. Playing on a monitor, it can get a little annoying, but I just feel like this game is so bombastic and ridiculous to begin with that I kind of like seeing the detail of the gun model. So, and it feels like classic Doom when it's taking up half your heads-up display and user info, so I really don't mind. So that's a little thing to be aware of. If that drives you nuts, then sorry. To me, I could not give less of a shit, to tell you the truth. Notifications are stretched as well, so like as far as I could tell, so like you get a Praetor token or something like that, it looks a little bit grainy in some areas, just the same way that some things in multiplayer, although multiplayer looks a lot worse when it comes up like double kill or whatever. It is, there's no denying that's stretched. I can tell from that. The font just looks way too fat. And single players is one of those things. I don't know what the implementation differences are, but it looks just better on the whole. I can't really tell you why. Also in single player, cutscenes mostly have black bars. I know a couple of them for sure do. I don't remember if anything was stretched, but as far as I remember, cutscenes do have black bars. I did have a couple tearing issues with cutscenes, so I'm imagining if you're not playing on a monitor that has a division of 30 in the refresh rate, it's going to, unless they do something stupid like 24 or 25 FPS. They look 30 to me, but you can't tell with all the motion blur and, it's kind of spazzy anyway. And when I'm talking about the cutscenes, I mean like the ones there's like demon flashbacks and that sort of thing. So on a 75 hertz display, I was seeing a bit of minor tearing going on with that, as well as black bars on the side, which is the correct thing to do. So hopefully, if you have G-Sync or whatever, that would alleviate that, or FreeSync, although FreeSync isn't quite as good about tearing as far as I'm aware. But at least it's not, stretched garbage like some cutscenes are. Those look 100 times worse than having black bars, in my opinion. Although it would be nice in this world of, random resolutions like that if they would just make a giant template and make it fit to whatever, without having stuff be too small. That would be the nice thing to do. But I know they won't because it's consoles is what, they're developing for. So it's whatever. Still, it turned out to be a much better. It's not really a port, but it just happened to be a much better co-developed game, given that it was so heavily marketed towards console people. So that is nice. Main menu is also black barry in some areas. Some stuff like stretches over them, which is kind of weird, but it still works out, which is a good thing. I don't really ever care about the main menu as long as it's functional and I can get out of it. Like Call of Duty 4, for instance. Like some of the clickable links, like create a class and stuff, they stop working sometimes. Like you click create a class and you could, click, change class or, change your loadout, and it just doesn't work with the mouse. You have to hit enter to make it work. No issues like that in this game. It's, if it's there, you can click on it, which is basic functionality. You would hope that would be a thing, but that's not always the case. So that is a good thing. So is it worth it overall to play this game in ultra-wide? I would say yes, although I would not give a full recommendation to it. For me, this was an amazing first impression for the ultra-wide aspect ratio. I've kind of had my doubts. Going in, I thought, we basically just now got to the point where content is in 16:9, where everything isn't, phone screens are finally people have settled on 16:9 and not 16:10 or some weirder stretch stuff, which I think some phones are even going to longer, which stop, please, just let's all keep it the same. We got video games that are, basically all 720p to 1080p and 16:9. Finally, we can keep it all the same. And then ultra-wide hits, and it's like, shit, that looks awesome. So yeah, it has some drawbacks in terms of content creation, because the video you're watching right now is rendered in regular 1080p. So I'm sorry for those of you that are watching on ultra-wide, you're going to have to get an extension to make it look less crap. But for the most part, in-game, especially with the extra 15 FPS compared to 60, this monitor, this game combination pretty much sold me on it. I can't guarantee that the next time I upgrade monitors that I will be getting ultra-wide. We'll have to see how support is at that time. We might go with like high refresh rate 1440p or maybe even, up to 100 hertz 4K depending on my computer at the time. But it's definitely not thrown out the window. I really was impressed, and I could definitely tell an improvement in maybe not my game performance per se as far as how I played, but just my enjoyment of the game. It felt so much more immersive. You can't really put that into words. You just kind of have to feel it. So I would say for this game in particular, it's definitely not the best. Single player is fantastic. Snap map on its own, not the best either. And multiplayer it has the poorest implementation out of all of them, especially considering that unlocked on the main menu, all the animations speed up. So when you look at your taunts, they're just ridiculous and hilarious and just so bad. But that's not ultra-wide related, but it's just kind of the overall port relation. And I just don't like multiplayer in this game. It's not arena. It's not competitive. It's not loadout, specific enough. It's some weird bastardization of Halo, Call of Duty, and a real arena shooter. And it's just like, it doesn't really fit a niche for me. It's okay to screw around with, but it just wasn't my thing. Snap map is fun with a friend, but like I said, both of those modes have their own individual issues with ultra-wide. They're not, game breaking or anything, but they just have their issues. So it's not the best, but it was enough for me to be sold on the idea of 21:9. And I have a feeling 3440 by 1440 might have a little bit, extra problems because it's not true 21:9. That's actually 3413 by 1440, I think, is the exact 21:9 ratio. I can't remember, something along those lines. But I'm assuming you can pretty much apply that, same notions to that resolution as well. So yeah, it's great. It just does have some problems. It's not as flawless as stuff like Battlefield 1 and even Titanfall, even though Titanfall is not perfect in every sense. But as far as gameplay goes, it's pretty damn good to me. The last thing I wanted to say about this game that ended up happening to me on Titanfall 2 as well, is the sensitivity of the save location. And this isn't related to performance, but just kind of a final warning to people who are maybe interested in the single-player game. So, a traditional save file on PC would be something like Skyrim or Witcher, the type I like. Yeah, if you save 500 times, you're going to get a huge folder full of save files. But at least I can delete them at my discretion, back them up. I like that. If something becomes corrupted, it's not a big deal. And corruption generally isn't going to happen unless you have a hard reset or something like that. So that is an issue. Well, if you're like me, and if you're stress testing a CPU overclock, which I've settled in between 4.4 and 4.5 gigahertz for this 2600K before I upgrade to whatever I upgrade to. And I was trying to push it a little more, so I tested Doom, right? So on a save file, just running through, and I was about 2 challenges away from completing one of the last achievements I needed in the game, at least for the base game. There's DLC stuff. The DLC's garbage, by the way, for as much money as they're asking for. Don't bother. It's multiplayer only anyway. But I had that and one other achievement. So I'm going along, like, okay, we'll test the system stability, whatnot, and, hardware crash. Game crashes the desktop. I'm like, okay, so system stability is not what it needs to be. I turned it down, you know, 0.1 gigahertz, jump back in the game, save file corrupted. So here's my problem. If your save file is so sensitive that a simple game crash can corrupt it, just don't. And it's not only on PC. This is a console problem too. You can read on forums that PlayStation 4 owners and Xbox One owners had their game crash to the console dashboard, and they lost their save and there's jack shit you can do about it on console. You start over and hope nothing happens. At least on PC, I saw what happened. I was really angry, and then I backed it up to a separate hard drive, and I've been doing it after every mission, which isn't, you know, not a big deal now. So once I go through, and I'm missing probably about 10 challenges that I haven't gotten in this past playthrough, and, you know, every time I clean one up, I'll just, you know, back up that save file. But yeah, I don't understand why we're doing these single save files on PC games, especially, that are so, I mean, it'd be one thing if it was like robust and it could handle it, but the fact that a single little crash due to a hardware malfunction can completely erase all of your progress up to that point is ridiculous. I mean, I had all data pads, I had all the little collectible Doom guys. Not that I'm terribly upset about those. I had all the classic levels, and now I have to start from scratch, basically. Maxed out Praetor suit, maxed out all my weapon challenges stuff. So basically, I'm doing it for the achievements. Not that I really care about Steam achievements, it's just like a completion thing for me, so I can move on with my life. But yeah, that is something to be noted. And the same thing happened to me on Titanfall 2 as well. Same save system, because consoles love their little single saves that are so, you know, finicky. That was because of a USB interface, though, that wasn't plugged in properly, and it, like, you know, kind of shorted a USB port, and, you know, blue screen of death, lost all my single player progress before, so I had to replay all that, get all the collectibles again, blah blah blah, when I was halfway through achievement hunting. So I've not had a good chance, good luck with that. So if you're playing those type of games, I recommend backing up, figuring out where the save file is and backing it up after every mission or after whatever milestone you've completed. So that's not related to Ultrawide, but just be aware that if you're testing hardware or stuff that you don't know is 100% stable, especially do it at that time. So yeah, a little bit of a rant there, but I had to throw that in while we're talking about it, because that has, you know, added several probably white hairs on my head, as well as a lot of extra time devoted to that. So that's Doom in a nutshell. That's Doom Ultrawide, and hope you enjoyed this video. And you know, hopefully you can find this game or another game that will hook you on 21x9 as well, because this one's a really good one, I think, because it's not that hard to run. It looks fantastic for the performance you get, and boy, it's just cool. I mean, just some of the landscapes you see in this true cinematic, you know, aspect ratio is to die for. So I was really impressed, and definitely makes me want to continue ultrawide gaming in the future, even if I, you know, might skip out on it a couple times down the road. So that's that. Thanks for watching. We will see you next Ultrawide Wednesday, and be sure to check out the last ones if you want to know how those other games work in the aspect ratio as well. See you next time. Bye.